This is a new podcast from Alpha Business Media. Welcome to The Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise, distill complex information, and give you the essential insights you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Nepal's economic future. It's a country that presents a really compelling paradox, doesn't it? Remarkable success in lifting people out of poverty, but without significant domestic growth or, the jobs needed to keep its youth at home. Our mission today is really to unearth Nepal's next economic engine, drawing on fresh analyses and, well, some surprising facts from the sources you've shared.
And that paradox is absolutely central to understanding Nepal right now.
Yeah.
Really is. What we're seeing is often called the money transfer paradox. Remittances, money sent home by Nepalese working abroad, account for, well, a staggering 25% of the country's entire GDP. Now, this has been an undeniable lifeline. It's virtually eradicated extreme poverty, which is, a huge humanitarian achievement. However, this dependence has also created what economists sort of call a Dutch disease-like effect. Basically, a large inflow of foreign money, like these remittances, can unintentionally strengthen the country's currency, and that makes its own exports less competitive globally. So for Nepal, this has undermined its ability to produce and export goods, kind of perpetuating a cycle where the country exports its most valuable asset, its young, skilled workforce. For nearly 3 decades now, Nepal's economy has grown at a pretty modest average, about 4.2% annually. That significantly lags its South Asian neighbors, and with global economic shifts, well, remittance growth is expected to slow down. That makes the urgency to find a sustainable domestic engine absolutely paramount.
Right. So if this traditional lifeline is becoming less reliable, where does Nepal turn? What are the maybe surprising high potential industries that could actually transform its economic landscape? Our deep dive today reveals 4 such areas, actually. We'll explore the vibrant, creative, or orange economy, then we'll dig into high-tech agriculture, uncover the burgeoning digital services sector, and finally, look at the potential of high-value health tourism. It's a fascinating mix, isn't it? And it paints a very different picture of Nepal's future. But before we look forward, though, maybe we should just get a baseline. What does Nepal's current economic situation actually look like? Give us the essential snapshot, the numbers that define this crossroads.
Okay, well, the numbers tell a story of moderate steady growth, but with some really deep-seated structural issues. Nepal's economy is valued roughly 46 billion US dollars. Growth forecasts for the current fiscal year are hovering around, say, 4.5%. But what's really critical to understand is the composition of this economy. Services just dominate. They make up over 62% of GDP. Agriculture, now despite employing the majority of the population, contributes only about 25%. And industry, manufacturing, construction, it lags significantly at just under 13%. So this structure, it points to a fundamental weakness, a very small manufacturing base and an agricultural sector that just isn't pulling its weight economically. On average, each person earns around $1,500 a year, and inflation's hovering around 5%. Last year, tourism saw a strong recovery, which is good news, over 1.1 million visitors. And as we discussed, remittances are still huge, around a quarter of GDP. The government debt, by the way, is about 43.8% GDP.
Okay, so those are the underlying numbers. You mentioned vulnerabilities earlier. What are the main pillars currently supporting this economy, and, well, what are the cracks showing in each of them?
Yeah, good question. Each pillar definitely has its Achilles heel. First, remittances. As we said, vital for consumption, poverty reduction. But this financial artery is extremely sensitive to economic shocks in the Gulf states and Malaysia, where many Nepalese work, and that growth is expected to slow.
Right, risky.
Exactly. Second, tourism. It's bounced back impressively, yes, but it's still vulnerable. We're talking about infrastructure issues like ongoing upgrades at Triphuvan Airport, which cause disruption, and of course natural disasters or global crises can hit tourism really hard. Third, hydropower. This is often called Nepal's white gold. Huge untapped potential, maybe 43,000 megawatts economically viable. Installed capacity is growing. It's now over 3,000 megawatts for 2023-24, and they're increasingly exporting electricity to India. That's positive. But, and it's a big but, unlocking this requires colossal capital investments. It faces significant bureaucratic hurdles, and it's actually vulnerable to climate change impacting river flows.
So beyond these specific pillars, are there deeper sort of systemic barriers that really hold Nepal back from achieving its full potential, things that cut across everything?
Absolutely. These are the really deep-rooted challenges. One is the infrastructure deficit and geography. Nepal's rugged mountainous terrain means poor roads, unreliable power lines that drastically increases the cost of doing business and just limits growth everywhere.
Yeah, you can imagine.
Then there's politics and governance. Persistent instability, frequent government reshuffles, weak governance. It all undermines policy consistency. Foreign investors get wary. And the slow implementation of federalism, well, that adds another layer of complexity. The challenging business environment also looms large. The private sector faces high tariffs, complex regulations, and critically limited access to finance, especially for the small and medium-sized businesses. And we're seeing rising non-performing loans, that's money banks lent that isn't being repaid. They're at a record 4.9% in the first half of this fiscal year. That's tightening lending conditions even further.
Oof.
Yeah. And finally, Nepal's high vulnerability to climate and natural disasters. That causes significant economic losses year after year.
Yeah.
So when you connect all these dots, the core problem becomes crystal clear. It's a profound lack of private sector-led growth and job creation. Poverty has been reduced. Yes, great achievement, but without the underlying economic transformation. And this creates what some call a vicious cycle of underinvestment. A weak private sector and difficult business environment discourage capital, right? Which prevents the creation of quality jobs. This, in turn, forces more people to leave, increasing dependence on remittances, which then ironically fund consumption rather than productive investment. Breaking this cycle, it needs a fundamental policy shift. It really does.
That's a powerful and, well, rather stark assessment of the current reality. But now let's pivot to hope. If the traditional models are struggling, where can Nepal find its new momentum? Let's unpack the first potential engine you mentioned, the creative or orange economy. What exactly does that mean, and what's its potential for Nepal?
Okay, the orange economy. Basically, it refers to industries that monetize creativity, culture, and intellectual property. Think art, music, film, crafts, design, software, anything that leverages human imagination. Globally, this market is enormous. We're talking trillions of dollars, accounting for over 3% of global GDP and creating nearly 50 million jobs. And importantly, high participation from women and youth. For Nepal, with its incredibly rich cultural heritage and a burgeoning young population, it's a massive, relatively untapped opportunity. A chance to translate that creative spirit into high-value exports and, bolster its soft power globally. And we're actually seeing a real breakthrough of the film industry right now. In the last fiscal year, the total film market in Nepal, that's Nepali and international films, combined hit a record 2.7 billion Nepali rupees. Nepali films alone brought in 1.8 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. And consider the film Porna Bahadurko Sarangi. It reportedly earned around 7.5 billion Nepali rupees worldwide on a budget of just 400 million.
That's incredible.
Isn't it? A truly incredible return. This isn't just cultural revival, it's a commercial success. It reflects strong domestic and clearly growing international appeal. The challenge, though, is the over-reliance on local cinemas. The true future, the real growth, lies in tapping into digital markets and major streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon, and the demand is there. Look at this. 38% of the international audience for the popular YouTube series Herne Kafa comes from the Nepali diaspora. They want this content.
Interesting. So film is one aspect. What else falls under this orange banner?
Well, then there's the master's touch in crafts, handicrafts. These experts contribute significantly already, generating around 12 billion Nepali rupees annually, shipped to over 60 countries. And this sector has achieved a remarkable 16% compound annual growth rate over the past decade. Key products are things like felt, metalwork, pashmina, unique paper items. But while that's impressive, Nepal still holds only maybe 0.5% to 1% market share in these key categories globally. There's huge room to grow.
So how do they grow that?
The path is through modern branding, really embracing e-commerce and protecting unique products with geographical indications, GIs. These are like certifications, right? They protect products unique to a specific region, much like France's champagne or Italy's Parmesan cheese. Think of Nepal's Dhaka cloth or Lakta paper. GI status adds value and protects authenticity.
Got it. Okay. Film, crafts. What else?
Finally, we have the digital canvas, or what you might call the maker economy. Online creators, digital artists, musicians. This is hugely youth-driven and promotes culturally informed development. But it faces significant hurdles. The digital divide is a major issue. Only about half the population has internet access and is mostly concentrated in urban areas.
Right, limits the reach.
Exactly. And then there are inconsistent and sometimes restrictive government policies, like the 2023 TikTok ban. It was justified on social harmony grounds, but widely seen by creators as stifling dissent and, crucially, their income. Creates a very uncertain environment. There's also just a clear lack of state support sometimes. The music industry, for instance, lacks fundamental artist rights and copyright protections. Most policies seem focused on big business, not the small-scale creative models that define this new economy. And the result? Nepal is failing to institutionalize and scale its creative successes, which leads to a significant loss of young talent who emigrate because they just can't find compelling career opportunities at home.
That's a recurring theme, isn't it? The talent drain. It's clear the creative spirit is vibrant, but the support structure, the ecosystem needed to nurture it and keep talent home, it's lagging. So while we look to these new frontiers, what about the oldest? Agriculture. It's always been Nepal's foundation, but you said it's been surprisingly unproductive. Can technology really cultivate a whole new future for this traditional cornerstone?
Oh, it absolutely can. And it needs to. Agriculture in Nepal, as you said, suffers from low productivity, severe land fragmentation, high vulnerability to climate change. Yet it employs most people. Technology offers, I think, two distinct, potentially transformative paths here. First, farming without soil, the hydroponic revolution. Think about it. As urbanization increases, especially in the Kathmandu Valley, farmland shrinks, but demand for fresh produce grows. Hydroponics offers a powerful solution. It uses 80–95% less water and land. It allows for year-round growing, even on urban rooftops. You get high-quality, environmentally friendly crops.
Less water, less land.
Okay.
Sounds efficient.
Very. A study in Kathmandu actually showed a remarkable benefit-to-cost ratio of 2.32 for hydroponics.
Yeah.
The yields significantly higher. For example, 1 acre can produce 21 tons of beans using hydroponics compared to just 5 tons traditionally.
Wow.
This technology could revolutionize urban food security, reduce dependence on imports, shorten supply chains, and crucially, companies are already emerging in Nepal offering affordable hydroponic equipment, so it's becoming more accessible.
Okay, that's farming without soil. What's the other path?
Second, a view from above. Precision farming with drones and satellites. See, traditional farming in Nepal is often inefficient, often involves inappropriate use of expensive inputs, like fertilizers or pesticides. Precision agriculture uses technology drones, satellites, to apply exactly the right inputs at the right place at the right time. Drones, or UAVs, can be used for crop monitoring, soil analysis, precise spraying. This reduces labor costs, saves water, minimizes chemical exposure, and significantly boosts productivity. The global market for spraying drones is projected to grow exponentially. It highlights the huge potential here. Drones can even deliver high-value produce directly from remote fields to market.
And satellites.
Satellites, too, play a vital role. Platforms like Krishi Drishti, which is developed specifically for Nepal, use satellite data. They provide farmers with actionable insights on crop status, soil moisture, weather forecasts, enabling truly data-driven decisions. Overall, precision farming optimizes resource use, significantly increases yields and profitability, and importantly, could make agriculture much more attractive to a younger, tech-savvy generation.
That's a really crucial point, making farming attractive again. But you mentioned accessibility with hydroponics. Is there a risk these high-tech solutions only benefit larger farms? How do you democratize this?
That is the key challenge, the gap between technology availability and farmer accessibility. These technologies are tested, they work. But limited technical capacity among farmers, lack of access to loans for the equipment, and inefficient advisory services. It could create a sort of dual agricultural economy, a few high-tech farms and the rest left behind. So the emphasis has to be on democratization of agri-tech through better funding options, widespread training programs, and strong support for local startups developing these tools.
Right, ensuring everyone benefits. Okay, let's shift gears again. Another compelling candidate for Nepal's next economic engine. The digital services and IT hub. This sounds like it truly holds the promise of a digital gold rush.
It really does, and its growth story is already, frankly, impressive. Nepal's IT services exports soared last year. They hit $515.4 million USD. Now, what's truly astonishing here, and maybe overlooked, is that this figure actually exceeds revenues from the traditional tourism industry.
Really? More than tourism?
More than tourism. That's a seismic shift in Nepal's economic structure that I think has gone largely unnoticed by many outside the tech world. The government has recognized this potential, though. They've set an ambitious 10-year target. Increase IT exports to 3 trillion Nepalese rupees, that's about $21.6 billion USD, and create 1.5 million jobs in the sector.
Huge targets. What's driving this growth? What advantages does Nepal have?
Well, it has some clear competitive advantages. Firstly, cost-effective skilled labor. Nepal offers a large pool of young, tech-savvy, English-speaking graduates, over 20,000 IT grads annually, and at a lower cost than regional competitors like India.
Okay, so the talent pool.
Secondly, a convenient time zone, GMT plus 5.45. It actually allows for a 24-hour work cycle with clients in Europe and the USA. That's a significant logistical plus for outsourcing. And thirdly, improving infrastructure. Despite lingering challenges, especially outside Kathmandu, internet penetration and fiber optic networks have significantly improved, and that's fueling the IT sector's growth.
So talent, time zone, infrastructure. But you mentioned a gap earlier.
Yes, despite this huge potential and obvious profitability, there's a significant investment gap. Both domestic and foreign direct investment in the IT sector remains surprisingly low. There's a critical disconnect between the sector's performance and the capital flowing into it. Obstacles include maybe a lack of global visibility. There isn't really a distinct Nepal brand in tech yet. Infrastructure deficiencies outside major cities are still a problem. And complex regulations can deter foreign investors. Within this sector, by the way, niche BPO business process outsourcing is also a major employer. Companies like CMS Nepal, Kantipur Management employ thousands. They serve global clients, increasingly specializing in non-voice services like data processing, content moderation, back-office support, but also moving into higher-value services like health informatics and finance.
That's incredible growth, truly. But what's the biggest hurdle to really scaling this up to meet those ambitious targets? Is it policy, investment, infrastructure, or something else?
Well, the critical bottleneck, it turns out, seems to lie in the education system. The IT boom is this fundamental demographic and economic shift, right? But the country's educational and political systems are struggling to keep pace. This leads to what's described as insufficient human capital and critical skills gaps. Meaning the number of young people entering domestic universities for IT is actually decreasing. More and more are choosing to study abroad instead.
Oh, that's counterintuitive.
Exactly. It creates this dangerous mismatch. The IT industry's demand for skilled workers is rapidly outpacing the domestic education system's ability to supply them. So the current boom, while impressive, probably isn't sustainable for scaling to that $21 billion industry, employing 1.5 million people. Growth will hit a human capital ceiling long before it reaches that goal.
Wow, so that's the real blocker.
It appears to be a major one. It creates a strategic imperative for a radical overhaul of Nepal's education policy, closely integrated with the private IT sector. The solution isn't just building more universities. It's about curriculum reform, industry-led vocational training, real public-private partnerships. And it also reframes that brain drain issue. It's not just a loss. It's potentially a future talent source if Nepal can create an attractive domestic ecosystem to lure this highly skilled diaspora back home. The IT sector offers maybe the best chance to do that, but only if this human capital problem is tackled proactively now.
That's a powerful call to action, aligning education with real-world opportunity. Okay, let's explore our final promising sector, wellness and spiritual tourism. This sounds like a really high-value niche, leveraging Nepal's truly unique assets.
It absolutely is, and it taps into a major global trend. We're seeing a significant shift worldwide towards transformative travel experiences, journeys focused on healing, rejuvenation, mental well-being, not just sightseeing. The global wellness tourism market is projected to grow at a staggering compound annual growth rate, over 21%. Religious tourism, also relevant for Nepal, is projected at over 9%. Nepal is uniquely positioned to ride this wave.
What makes it so unique?
Well, it boasts truly unique assets. First, it's a spiritual epicenter. The birthplace of Buddha in Lumbini, countless sacred Hindu sites like Pashupatinath, monasteries, stupas everywhere. This deep spiritual energy is a powerful magnet. It attracted over 130,000 people just for pilgrimage in 2023 alone, about 13% of all tourists.
Okay, spirituality. What else?
Beyond that, Nepal has rich traditional healing practices. Think Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, herbal medicine. These are gaining global recognition and respect. And finally, its natural sanctuaries. The serene landscapes, the Himalayas, the tranquil lakes like Pokhara. They create perfect backdrops for wellness retreats, offering a therapeutic escape from modern life.
So the assets are there. How does that translate into economic opportunity?
Well, the economic opportunity here is significant. Health and wellness tourists tend to spend significantly more per day and stay longer than regular tourists. So focusing on this segment can dramatically increase revenue per tourist, enhancing the overall economic impact without necessarily needing a huge increase in tourist volume.
Higher value, lower volume.
Exactly. The hotel industry is already starting to embrace this, offering specialized retreats and curated wellness packages. And there are significant investment opportunities in creating more high-quality health centers that integrate both modern medical facilities and traditional practices. This strategy effectively addresses that volume versus value dilemma in tourism. Instead of just attracting millions of lower-spending tourists, which can burden fragile ecosystems, wellness tourism attracts a demographic willing to pay a premium for exclusive, high-quality, restorative experiences. It's a form of green development, really. It encourages preserving the very assets that attract these tourists. The unspoiled nature, the tranquil settings, the authentic cultural practices.
That sounds like a brilliant strategy. Maximize impact, minimize footprint. But what are the hurdles? What needs to happen to make this a major engine?
Well, the challenges include, again, poor infrastructure in some of the more remote, potentially ideal areas. There's a critical need for uniform quality standards and international certification to build trust with discerning global consumers. And more targeted marketing efforts are needed to really reach that global wellness community. But addressing these challenges could truly unlock immense potential for Nepal in this space.
This brings all the threads together really beautifully, I think. Nepal truly seems to be at a defining moment. It sounds like the solution isn't finding one single new economic engine, but actually cultivating a diverse, resilient, and interconnected ecosystem.
That's precisely right. That's the key takeaway. The country's future prosperity likely depends on the crucial synergies between these new sectors. The IT sector, for example, provides the digital platforms necessary for the creative economy, think e-commerce for crafts, streaming for films, and for wellness tourism, handling bookings, marketing.
Right, the digital backbone.
Exactly. High-tech agriculture can provide the high-quality organic produce that's essential for wellness retreats and the broader high-end tourism sector. And perhaps most importantly, the creative and wellness economies create a vibrant, attractive culture and lifestyle. That helps retain the young, entrepreneurial talent needed to fuel the IT sector's growth. These elements aren't isolated, they reinforce each other in a really powerful way.
So it's not just about what Nepal has in terms of physical resources or location, but maybe the ingenuity and spirit of its people that truly represents its greatest untapped potential.
Exactly. That's it. The path forward seems to involve systematically removing those political and bureaucratic barriers we talked about, strategically investing in these emerging sectors, and critically aligning education with the needs of this modern, evolving economy. Doing that can finally move Nepal beyond the remittance paradox and start to weave a new economic fabric, one that is creative, intelligent, resilient, and capable of generating broad-based prosperity for decades to come.
What a powerful and actually quite hopeful vision for Nepal's future. An economy that is creative, intelligent, resilient, generating prosperity, not just for a few, but hopefully for all.
And maybe this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider. Imagine a Nepal where these sectors truly flourish, where they succeed in attracting the country's brightest minds back home, not just as visitors, but as innovators, entrepreneurs. What groundbreaking new industries or cultural movements might emerge from such a confluence? And what profound lessons could this transformation offer for other developing nations grappling with similar economic shifts, like dependence on remittances or brain drain? What aspects of this transformation stand out most to you?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Nepal's economic future. We encourage you to explore these topics further and see how these fascinating insights connect to the wider world. Until next time.